So first of all, let me introduce you to this man. You've probably never heard of him. His name's Fabian Thyman. He is the biggest single pornography pimp magnate in the world. He has actually just been arrested last week in Germany. He's a German industrialist. He was arrested for tax evasion. And I'm, of course, busy trying to think how I can make hay with that, right? And we can figure out ways of keeping him in prison. But at the moment, he's in prison, right? This is what you do when you're an activist. You jump on anything you can at the moment it happens. So he's a 34-year-old German businessman. He stays under the radar. He is basically buying up the porn industry. The last time he gave a talk at a major porn convention, he was booed and hissed because he's putting the small people out of business. And I bet no one's ever heard of this guy, am I right? Okay, there's a reason you've never heard of him. But now people will have heard of him because he's just been arrested. So he owns a company called Manwin, M-A-N-W-I-N, Man, Together, Win. In 1 year, the pre-tax earnings of Manwin increased 40%. It is reported that Thyman recently spent $140 million to purchase new websites. He employs over 500 people in 5 different companies: Germany, America, Luxembourg. Now, his holdings include some of the major porn sites: Video Bash, Spankwire, Brazzers, Mofos, etc. But more important, and this is what people do not know that's happening, he also owns most of the free porn sites. Now, how many of you heard that free porn is killing the porn industry? Have you heard this? That a lot of people are not paying for porn anymore. Right? Wrong. What's happened is that free porn is the new business model of the 21st century. There is a reason that the man who owns most of the paid porn sites owns the free porn sites. He is using the free porn sites to drive traffic to his paid porn sites. And who's the most likely to go to a free porn site? A kid with no money. So what you're doing is you're building your consumer base. Do you understand? That's what you do. Why does the alcohol industry target kids? Because when you get them younger, you got them for life. So he's bought up the free porn sites. They've even done studies to find that the best length of time to upload. So he uploads his paid piece, making it look like homemade. It's called amateur porn. It's a niche market in the porn industry. Amateur porn doesn't mean people making it at home. It means the porn industry making porn that looks like it's been made at home, okay? And the studies found that 3 to 6 minutes is the optimal time. Why? You get the guy aroused, but he doesn't ejaculate, so in his need to ejaculate, he uses his credit card to go to a paid porn site. This is the level of research they do, okay? So free porn is actually now the way of building porn even more. Also, even more bad news, Manwin is one of the 2 leaders in the mobile phone porn industry in North America, handling 4.5 million visitors a day. So can you see the tentacles spreading everywhere? And very important, again, we're back to the mobile phone porn, is that this opens up the world. The world. Now, let's have a look at this. This is a man called Jules Jordan, very hardcore gonzo director. And he was interviewed and he said, one of the things about today's porn, the extreme market, the gonzo market, so many of the fans want to see so much more extreme stuff. We're trying to figure out new ways. So can you see? They don't know what to do to keep the men interested because of the built-in boredom factor. So where is the porn industry going with this? Well, let's begin with a 2003 decision, Ashcroft versus the Free Speech Coalition. The Free Speech Coalition is the lobbying arm of the porn industry. You all know what lobbying is? Yes? Echelman Bivret? Oh, lobby. Okay, lobby. See, I got a new word in Hebrew now. Okay. Now, let's talk about this. This is the Free Speech Coalition, is the lobbying arm of the porn industry. In 2003, it went up against the Ashcroft Supreme Court and said that the 1996 Child Pornography Prevention Act was too limited. What did that act say? That act said, amongst other things, number 1, nobody under the age of 18 in porn. Number 2, nobody who looks under the age of 18. Reasonable? Well, the Free Speech Coalition, the porn industry, said this limits our free speech. And the Ashcroft Court agreed. And they struck down the 1996 part of the Child Pornography Prevention Act that says that no one under 18 can looks under 18. What you got overnight was an explosion in what I call legal child porn sites. You get to them through the group called teen porn or babysitter porn. Barely legal, yeah, exactly the same thing, okay? So just to give you an example of where this is going. First time with daddy. Do you know how many stepdaughters get raped? Not accidental. Pedophiles hone in on women with children. Now, let's talk about where this is going. Let's talk about what this means. Okay, so I was invited to a prison in Connecticut by a therapist who was basically said to me, all the men talk about is their porn use. I would like you to come in and interview them. And I was invited to interview 8 men, none of whom, right, not one is a pedophile. Have you got this? You all know what pedophilia is, yes? Right, well, let's call it child molestation. Not one of them fits the definition of a child molester, a pedophile. Yet every single one was in for either downloading child porn or raping a child. So let's try and think about this. So I asked them, I said to these guys, are you pedophiles? And they were insulted. And they said, no, of course we're not. We prefer sex with adult women. How do we know they weren't pedophiles? Because most of them were in their 40s and 50s and had never touched a child till then. Now, if anyone knows how a pedophile works, they start offending around 14 and 15. By the time these guys get to 40 and 50, they have left hundreds of children in their wake. So when I said to these men, I said to them, why did you rape a child then if you're not a pedophile? And you know what they said? We got bored with adult porn and we thought we'd try something new. And you know the length of time between first looking at child porn and raping a child for these men was a year on average. Now, I want you to think about what we've done. We have opened up a whole new generation of men who would not before have seen children as legitimate victims, and now they are. So we now have a whole extra group of men out. And I want to tell you what happened that day. That day in that prison, I was given an understanding of the culture like nothing else. Because I had been, in that year, I had been interviewed for the film The Price of Pleasure. And at one point, we were struggling, me and the filmmakers, to say, what has happened in the culture? And we could not come up with the concept of what had happened. And let me tell you, it was that day in that prison that everything crystallized for me. And it wasn't an academic who gave me the concept. It was a child molester I like to call Dick. Right? Now, Dick was telling me about how he raped his 10-year-old stepdaughter. Now, you all know the concept of grooming, yes? What you do, grooming. Right, this is when you have an abuser, molester, pedophile, or batterer, and they hone in on the victims, and they don't beat or rape. What they do, especially to children, is they tell them how special they are, how nice they are, they buy them presents, they get them ready, and then they tell them how hot and sexy they are. It gets to the point where you think the only thing that matters about you is your sexuality. That's how you groom a child. And Dick looked me in the face, and he turned around, and when he was talking about grooming, the words that came out of his mouth were the most profound I have heard. The culture did a lot of the grooming for me. And that was what I was missing. And it suddenly dawned on me. We're living in a perpetrating culture. No longer does the individual groomer have to groom the individual child. We now have a culture collectively grooming our girls for early, inappropriate sexuality. And we now have a culture grooming our boys to become gonzo users. The culture has become a collective perpetrator. And now the position of parents is impossible. There is no way a parent can do their job. Because what is the job of a parent? The job of a parent is to socialize your kid into the culture so that when you're not there, your kid can manage. But when you live in a toxic culture, right, what are you doing? And you can't keep the culture out of your home because it's counterintuitive for a parent to do that. So do you understand that to say, oh, my kid doesn't watch TV, or I'm not doing this, is kind of like sitting on a toxic dump, eating organic food, wondering why you're still getting sick? It's not possible, okay? So we have to begin to understand that what we have now is a cultural problem, a macro social problem, and the response has to be from a macro perspective.